Welcome to r/Am I the Jerk, where Karen can't follow the rules and ends up getting kicked out. Am I the jerk for kicking our adult stepdaughter out of the home? It's important to know that we are content in a stable couple with full-time jobs. We own our house. We're not wealthy, just diligent, and we have two boys together who are 8 and 12. Here's the situation. My husband has had full custody of his daughter since she was young. I entered their lives when she was 17 months old, and her visits with her biological mother were infrequent, often non-existent during her childhood. From an early age, she showed signs of mental health issues, which we sought to address consistently. What started as small thefts escalated to shoplifting, and her tendency to lie, often about trivial matters, developed into pathological lying. This behavior extended beyond our home to teachers, counselors, friends, and their parents. While she was well-behaved outside our household, she regularly disrespected us by ignoring rules, crossing boundaries, hurling insults, and simply refusing to communicate. Whenever we attempted to enforce consequences for her actions, she would run away. For instance, if we restricted her internet access as a punishment, she would leave and often stay away for days or even weeks. Additionally, she began using things in our home that we didn't allow. Things came to a head when she deliberately broke a cherished glass elephant we had on display. This was not just a decorative piece, it held sentimental value for us, and her actions felt like a clear act of defiance. After this incident, my husband made the difficult decision to ask her to leave. We didn't kick her out onto the street. A friend's mother offered her a place to stay. We felt it was one thing to manage her behavior ourselves, but we couldn't allow her to direct that same behavior towards her younger siblings. It was a painful choice, but we believed it was necessary for the well-being of our family. So, are we in the wrong? Not the jerk. She's 21 and highly disruptive to the younger kids and sounds like there will be a much healthier environment for them without her. Not the jerk. She's an adult and now gets to face the consequences of her actions. You're not required to provide housing for her. My favorite regular is now my worst nightmare. I'm a 24-year-old female bartender, and I've worked at my restaurant for over 2 years now. About a year ago, I got promoted to become a bartender, and this is when I met Alex, changed his name for privacy. Alex started off as the perfect customer, super kind and respectful, low maintenance, easy to talk to, with a great sense of humor, and he tipped very well. If his check was under $100, he'd always tip $50, and if it was above, he'd tip $100. Even if he didn't tip like this, I still would have really enjoyed him as a customer. I genuinely liked talking to him, and if I saw him come in, I knew it would be a good day. My coworker, who had been bartending at my restaurant longer than I have, noticed something before I did. She suspected that Alex had a crush on me for a while, but didn't say anything because he kept it respectful, and it seemed harmless. Alex also has a wife and 3 kids, and he knows that I'm engaged, so a harmless crush didn't necessarily mean anything, especially if he didn't act on it, or at least that's what my coworker thought. Alex started coming in more frequently. I would see him at least once a week. Then he asked me what days I bartended, and he would only come in on those days. After one of his kids got really sick, he didn't come in for a while. The bartenders and I were really worried about him during this time because his kid is young and we all cared about the guy. Sometime after Thanksgiving, Alex came in again while I was working. He talked about his kid and mentioned that he really liked talking to me. He asked again what days I worked because he wanted to come in when I did. He proceeded to ask me to exchange emails so he could get my schedule. I thought that was really weird and told him emails seemed suspicious. He laughed it off, agreed with me, then gave me his number instead. He tipped me $200 that night, but I threw away his number at the end of my shift. It felt wrong and made me feel dirty. About a week before Christmas, Alex came in again and apologized if giving me his number made me feel uncomfortable. He said, "If I ever say or do anything that makes you feel uncomfortable, you can tell me to buzz off." I laughed it off and said I would, but I wasn't sure what else to do. I was at work and I couldn't leave. It was very weird for him to bring that up. Later, when I cashed him out, he started talking again about how easy it was for him to talk to me and how he really had no one. He explained how his mom had never cared about him and only did now because of his money. He said that friends had manipulated him because of his money. I asked, "What about your wife? Surely she's there for you." He went on to complain about his wife, saying they always fought and never agreed on anything. I told him he should talk to a therapist. He replied that he had tried, but they only wanted his money. Then he looked at me and told me that I was different. He also called me attractive and continued on. I didn't know what to say or how to process what I was hearing, but I found a way to end the conversation and get back to work so he could leave. He didn't come in for a while after that. Alex came back again on Valentine's Day, this time with his wife. I wasn't sure how to process it at first, but he started bringing her in more often, and I even got to talk to her and get to know her. She's wonderful, so kind and beautiful. She's an elementary school teacher, and she loves her family a lot. This made me dislike Alex because here he has this amazing wife who is struggling just as much as he is, and yet he spends hours at my bar while she's at home taking care of their sick kid and their infant. After that, things seemed to get better. It really looked like their relationship was on the mend, and maybe whatever had happened during the holidays was just a moment of weakness for him. He started acting normally again, and I could talk to him without feeling uncomfortable. Even when he came in without his wife, things felt like they were back to the way they used to be. The last time I saw his wife, she came in and asked if I worked out, then started asking about my fitness routine because she had some fitness goals herself. Normally, I don't mind talking about that stuff because I enjoy weightlifting and helping others who are interested in it. As I was answering her questions, Alex jumped in and said, "I'll pay you to train her." My jaw nearly dropped to the floor. It felt almost sinister, and I started to feel trapped. I immediately said, "Oh no, I wouldn't be a good trainer," and derailed the conversation by recommending a certified trainer I knew who could help her. After that, Alex started coming in alone again and making weird jokes. He began joking about me babysitting for them. I was literally screaming internally, "I'm a stranger." He told me he could teach me how to paint when I mentioned I enjoyed painting as a hobby. He even invited me to gamble with him. When I said I didn't like losing, he offered to give me money to gamble with. I had to make a joke, saying if he gave me money, I wouldn't gamble it because then it wouldn't be his anymore. It would be mine. At that point, I had told other female bartenders about it, and they had noticed the same thing. They started helping keep an eye on me and try to help me avoid him, but it's really hard when I'm stuck behind a counter. The worst happened this summer when he came in late and overheard that 2 of my coworkers were going out for drinks after the shift. The bartender I was working with liked him a lot, and they had gone out for drinks before, so he invited Alex to join them. Alex quickly asked if I was going. I told him no, I was tired and going straight to bed after my shift. He literally begged me to come out and offered to buy me a drink. I declined again, using the excuse I had just come back from vacation and had drunk too much, so I needed to rest. Alex continued to beg me to come out with them and let him buy me a drink. He asked at least 15 times that night. I wish I were exaggerating, but I'm not. The last thing he said before they left for the bar was, "So, what will it be, yay or nay?" I told him my answer was still no. He joked that he didn't hear me, so I corrected him and said he wasn't listening. He then said, coyly, "Well, I don't like to listen." That upset me so much, but I chose not to say anything and left. Alex came back the next week. Before he left, he asked me again to go out for a drink as a friend. I said I don't drink. He asked about coffee. I said I don't drink caffeine. He pleaded with me, asking, "Water?" I finally told him I wasn't comfortable going out with him at all and cashed him out. He told me to have a nice life and left. He didn't come in again for almost 3 months, but guess what? Alex came in again about 2 weeks ago, this time with a friend who occasionally joins him. They were celebrating because his friend had passed a really hard chemical engineering class. Again, Alex acted like nothing had ever happened. No weird behavior, nothing off. I kept my service hat on, but tried to keep my distance as much as possible behind the counter. Unfortunately, he likes to sit right behind our point of sale system, so it's really hard to avoid him. To my relief, nothing weird happened, and they left after a pleasant, uneventful visit. Now we're caught up to the present. Alex came in again this past Tuesday, an hour before we closed, while I was the only bartender working. I was hoping everything would be fine and normal, but I was really scared that it wouldn't be. To my dismay, he asked me again to go out for drinks. I avoided the question, but he asked again. I told him I was on antibiotics and I couldn't drink, which was conveniently true. This man still refused to take a hint and continued to exhaust me by asking, "How about when you're off the antibiotics?" I told him no again and made an excuse that I was trying to stay sober. I don't know if he believed me or finally got the hint, but he said goodnight and left. I was actually scared during that last interaction. Even though nothing serious seemed to be happening from an outside perspective, I was really scared. For the first time, I was completely alone behind the bar with him. There was one cocktailer working, but no one else was behind the bar, and he was almost the second to last customer to leave. I was terrified of being alone with him. The fact that he kept ignoring everything that had happened and continued to ask me to get drinks with him was frightening. It made me wonder what would happen if I ever gave in and agreed. Fortunately, my manager walked me out that night and nothing happened, so for now, I'm safe. I finally told the bartender who went out for drinks with Alex that night what had been happening, but I still don't know what to do about this. I don't know if management will believe me, and I'm afraid Alex will retaliate if I do tell them. If he comes in again and does something else, I'm not sure how I'll react. I've had similar experiences with stalkerish customers. I'd request a manager to stay with you if there's ever a time when you're alone with them again. And I get it's uncomfortable, but what I've had to do in the past, and what I think is important, is laying everything flat out. The next time he asks you something like this, Alex, you need to stop asking me this. I do not want to see you outside of work, and I will not. You are married, I have a fiance, and it's not appropriate. You need to stop asking me this, as the answer will not change, and it's inappropriate, and you're making me feel uncomfortable. And leave it at that. Make it very clear that it's not just, I don't drink, I'm tired, I don't drink coffee, antibiotics, etc. These obsessive people will cling on to whatever they can. Make it very clear you will never be hanging out with them outside of work and why, and that he's making you uncomfortable and he needs to stop. And also inform all of your coworkers and insist that you are not left in a situation where you're alone with them. I would leave out, you're married and I have a fiance. To a guy like that, it just sounds like an expendable obstacle. Just tell him, I'm not interested in any relationship with you. You come and hang out here and I'm at work. If I wasn't at work, I would not hang out with you. It's okay to be blunt. You've done literally everything else to try to politely rebuff him. After asking for a divorce and starting proceedings, my husband is now begging me to take him back. I'm in the UK, so divorce law may be a bit different compared to the US or other countries. I, 31 female, married my husband who's 32 4 years ago, and I thought we had a solid relationship. However, one night he sat me down and handed me some papers. My husband had applied for divorce. I was totally blindsided and stared at the paper for ages, hoping I'd read a line saying, gotcha, or something like that. I just asked why, trying not to burst into tears. My husband, without looking me in the eye, explained that over time, he had just felt us growing apart, and while he still cared about me, he didn't love me. I felt so heartbroken, but I was also angry that he had never spoken to me about this issue. It was like he hadn't even given me a chance to fix things. I told him that, and he became defensive, telling me that was how he felt and I had to deal with it. He went to bed, and I slept on the couch. The next day, I thought it over some more and tried to see his side. It's true that after we got married, we were both promoted and now spend less quality time together due to work. My father is also terminally ill, and I visit him every other weekend while my husband stays home. So I suppose I could see where he was coming from about distance, but every time we were together, it was never addressed. Still, after a few more days, I decided I didn't want to be with someone who said they did not love me, and I agreed to proceed with the divorce. My family was sad for me, but understood. However, my mother and father-in-law both texted me long messages about giving their son a second chance. That was months ago. I'm now living in the house alone while my husband stays with his brother. We've had a good relationship throughout the divorce. It's been cordial and polite, which is all I can ask for it to be. At one meeting, my husband even mentioned he was going on a blind date that night. It hurt to hear, but at the same time, I accepted it because our relationship was as good as over. All that changed last week when my husband and his brother showed up unexpectedly on the doorstep. My husband was crying and begging for me to take him back. He kept saying he had loved me all this time and had made a terrible mistake. The whole thing felt so weird, and I ended up telling both of them to leave and close the door. He blew up my phone with crying voicemails, and my best friend suggested his blind date had dumped him. That might be true, but I have no idea. Since then, he's been begging nonstop for me to take him back. And since we haven't got a final order yet, we can still stop the proceedings. I feel insulted that after starting this, he's now turning around trying to make everything go back to how it was. How can I navigate this and get it through his head that I don't want him back? It wasn't a blind date. He fell for someone and thought it would be permanent. When he told you about the blind date, he made a move and it failed. And now he wants to be back in his safe place till he meets someone new. It sounds like his blind date was someone he had feelings for all along, which is likely why he filed for divorce. He left you, tried to pursue her, and when it didn't work out, he suddenly realized he had made a terrible mistake. The grass isn't always greener on the other side, and some people don't realize what they have until it's gone. Personally, I wouldn't take back someone who put me through something like that either. Am I the jerk for telling my friend that her wedding plans are currently unrealistic? I'm 30 female. My friend, who's 35 female, recently got engaged, and I'm absolutely thrilled for her. Before she got engaged, she had mentioned that she and her partner wanted to elope to a different, more expensive country. I've always supported her in this and firmly believe that your wedding should be your rules. The problem rose when, after getting engaged, She said she couldn't wait for the elopement wedding. I took her aside and mentioned that I might not be able to attend due to financial reasons. She responded by saying there would be plenty of time to save for the wedding. They plan to do it in 2026, and that the cost is what you make of it. She also suggested that it could be turned into a holiday for the guests, so they wouldn't be flying 12 hours just for the wedding. The country and city where she plans to elope isn't my favorite place in the world, and I have little interest in visiting it. I wouldn't turn it into a holiday. If I attended, it would be solely for the wedding, and then I'd return home. Fast forward 6 months, and the planning has begun. They've invited around 40 people to the wedding, saying they know others who have eloped and had 20 to 30 guests. I made a comment that I thought that was an unrealistic expectation because of the costs involved, and that she should be prepared for the possibility that not all 40 people will attend, possibly even significantly fewer. She immediately became defensive, insisting that she wasn't being unreasonable, and even suggesting that the cost for guests would be the same as attending a wedding at home. I disagreed, but didn't want to escalate the situation. She knows some people may decline, but as a close friend, I think she's more hurt that I might not be able to come. As far as I know, the couple isn't planning to pay for any expenses except maybe one meal after the wedding. Since then, my friend has been quiet and cold, and I'm wondering if I said too much and should have just politely declined attending. I'm still trying to figure out if I can make the cost work because I would love to go, but it's a significant amount of money for me, $2,500 being generous. Am I the jerk for telling my friend I think she's being unrealistic about her wedding? Edit for clarification. I've described it as elopement because that's what my friend has always called it. I hadn't considered it a destination wedding, which is why I suggested it might be unrealistic to expect so many people to attend. Also, not from the US. Second edit. Some comments have asked why I brought this up if the bride already knew some people would say no. Among close friends, including me, there has been an expectation that we will attend no matter what. It's assumed we can all afford it and go. Some of our mutual friends have expressed their concerns to me about the costs, which was why I felt compelled to say something. Not the jerk. Anytime anyone has a destination wedding, they have to be prepared that there will be people that will not be able to attend. I don't think you're wrong for telling her gently that people may not be able to attend and that she's being a bit unrealistic to think everyone will. Also, if you can't make it due to finances, just be sure to give her plenty of notice and she will have to accept that. I don't think it's unfair to assume that people would not be able to go. Technically, if she has an advanced plan and is inviting guests, it's a wedding, not an elopement. So she's having a destination wedding, a 12-hour plane ride away. That means any attendees are going to be A, very close friends, and B, interested in traveling to this particular destination, and C, have the financial resources for the trip. She needs to resign herself to the fact that out of 40 people, just a few are going to meet all 3 of those criteria. I hope she can get 5, maybe 10 people to go. Am I the jerk for refusing to let my brother's family move in after he evicted me years ago? Several years ago, I, 28 female, was living with my older brother, Tom, who's 37, and his wife, Karen, who's 34. I had just graduated from college, had a pretty bad job at the time, and was struggling to make ends meet. Tom had a house with a guest room, and he told me I could stay with them for a while until I got back on my feet. I was beyond grateful, and I made sure to help out however I could, cooking, cleaning, and buying groceries when I could afford it. Fast forward about 6 months, I finally landed a decent job and was able to contribute more financially. I was on my way to becoming independent. Around this time, Karen got pregnant. At first, everything seemed fine, but then Karen started dropping subtle hints that they needed more space for the baby. The hints soon turned into direct conversations about how they needed the guest room for a nursery. Tom assured me that I could stay until I found a new place, but Karen was clearly becoming more agitated by the day. Then one afternoon, I came home from work to find all my stuff packed up and sitting in the hallway. Tom told me that Karen had decided they needed me out as soon as possible. No discussion, no warning. He tried to soften the blow by saying they'd help me with a security deposit on a new place, but it was humiliating and hurtful. I ended up couch surfing for a couple of months until I could afford a small studio apartment. It was a really tough time for me, both emotionally and financially. I'll never forget the feeling of being thrown out of my own brother's house like that. Fast forward to now, Tom's life has taken a turn. His business went under and they're having financial issues. Last week, he called me out of the blue, sounding desperate. They're being evicted from their house and have nowhere to go. He asked if he, Karen, and their 2 kids could stay with me for a few months while they get back on their feet. Here's the thing, I'm doing much better now. I have a good job, a nice apartment, and I've been saving for a house. I can technically accommodate them, but the thought of letting them move in after what they did years ago just doesn't sit right to me. I told Tom I needed to think about it, and ever since, he's been sending me guilt-trippy texts about how family is supposed to be there for each other and how they have nowhere else to go. Even my parents have gotten involved, saying I should let them stay with me because they're family, and what happened years ago is in the past. But here's the kicker. Karen hasn't apologized once for how they treated me, not a word. She didn't even acknowledge it when we spoke on the phone. It's like they expect me to just forget about it and welcome them with open arms. I'm torn. Part of me feels like I should help because they're my family, but the other part of me feels like this is karmic justice. Am I the jerk for refusing to let them stay with me after what they did, or should I let the past go and help them out in their time of need? Your parents' house would suit them better because it's larger with built-in childcare. They would have an uncertain future in your place because when you buy, there would be no question of them coming with you. Family is supposed to help each other. No doubt Karen's family are gasping to help them. Not the jerk. You have nothing to gain and everything to lose. Am I the jerk for telling my girlfriend I hate the surprise party she arranged? Me, 30 male, and my girlfriend, 29 female, have been together for 2 years. I had a big birthday coming up, my 30th, and she decided to enlist the help of my 2 close friends and housemates to throw me a surprise birthday party at our house. Around 15 mutual friends and 10 of my friends were invited. Now, I've always maintained that I hate surprises and that I want to know things in advance. I have mild social anxiety and hate having things kept from me. Also, it's not the way I enjoy things. I like to have things in my calendar to look forward to, think about them, plan them out, and imagine the details. I'm the type of person to check the menu weeks before I go to a restaurant. My girlfriend loves surprises. She did not believe someone wouldn't enjoy a nice surprise. When she teased the idea of surprising me, I was always clear in communicating that it's not something I want. Nonetheless, she went all out. Go-karting, dinner at a great restaurant, my house decorated to the max for the party, cake, balloons, confetti. My anxiety was building steadily from the first activity to the last. I was dragged from location to location. Everyone knew the plan, the next location, except for me. I hated every bit of it. I had an internal conflict because I know these are all objectively nice things, but I couldn't help hating every second while having to pretend to all my friends that I was having the best time. I didn't want to be a killjoy and appear ungrateful. Throughout the day, I kept asking her to give me more details of the plans, but she didn't want to spoil the surprise. It all came to a head when I realized we were heading back to our place for the party. It sounds silly, but my room was untidy, and the anxiety spike from knowing people would see it sent me over the edge. I said some unkind things to her, questioned if she even knew me, and told her that I hated it all. I said this in private. I didn't cause a scene in front of others. I tried to smooth things over afterward, as I recognized I reacted out of frustration and anger, but she was understandably upset. She thinks I'm ungrateful, rude, and that I dismissed her efforts. I think I was driven to this by the set of events that I was clear I didn't want. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Your girlfriend didn't throw a party for you. She threw a party for herself. She completely ignored your wishes and then doubled down by not telling you more information even though you asked. It's very telling that she's now trying to play the victim. She sounds selfish and spoiled. Karen leaves her kids at our house, demanding we raise them. I, 29 female, knew from a young age that I never wanted to have or raise kids. I met my husband in college, and he was decidedly child-free too. We got married a couple of years back. My husband's younger sister, who's 24, has 3 kids who are 5 and twins who are 2, with different deadbeat guys. 2 months ago, she left all of them at our house, said she was going on an errand, and never came back. Just left. We filed a report and everything. Last we heard, she was safe, but did not want to come back. My husband's mom is a minimum wage worker, barely scraping by. She used to be a single mom and does not want to raise these kids. I don't want to raise them either. Don't get me wrong, I do feel bad for them, but raising kids is a huge responsibility. I don't want to take that up. In the 2 months they were here, our expenses have increased. We had to buy them clothes and stuff, and they're sleeping in our living room on air mattresses. We only have 1 bedroom. I had to work from home and look after them because my husband could not get work from home and daycare for 3 is expensive. It's been really tough to say the least. CPS did get involved and asked us whether we want to keep them or not. I don't. I thought my husband would be on the same page, but he wants to keep them. CPS has asked us to decide quickly and make necessary changes. Get a bigger home for one. My husband and I have gone back and forth on this. I cannot live the next 16 years like this. Raising kids is hard and expensive, but he wants me to be there for his family, which I get. So yesterday I told him I wanted divorce, quickly before he made any commitments and dragged me into it with him. He called me a jerk for divorcing him over these kids, for abandoning him when he needs me. I told him he knew my boundaries well in advance, and this was a commitment, having kids, that he is unilaterally deciding on. Am I the jerk? This is not relevant, but it is increasingly annoying when 1 out of 5 comments are telling me about wedding vows. We did not do traditional wedding vows. We don't believe in till death do us part. Our vows did include not having kids. Our vow was to stay together till staying apart made us happier than staying together will. Staying in a toxic relationship where you can't stand each other just because you made a vow was never appealing to us. I can't fault either of them. The only jerk here is the sister. And the deadbeat fathers. The sister is safe? Great. Maybe she can use her newfound freedom to take on a couple of jobs to earn money to pay child support for her own kids, or get thrown in jail for being a deadbeat mom. While some may think of you as a bad person for your decision, you're not the jerk. You had this crazy idea that you would get to remain child-free when you married someone who also wanted to be child-free. It's not like you're not agreeing on what temperature to set the furnace or what color to paint the kitchen. This is about as huge as it gets, and he made the choice he made without caring about your feelings. You're the jerk, but you already know that. Why else would you have asked? Get your divorce and get out of that man's life. Don't ever get married again, and get some therapy, or you're just going to bounce from man to man. No problem of her ever getting married again. Any guy who hears this and has a lick of sense is going to abandon ship ASAP. She has shown that she can't be relied on in any serious problems. Spot on. If I was engaged to a woman and she told me this story, I would end the relationship in a heartbeat. Imagine being in your 50s, less than a decade away from retirement, and your elderly mother falls down the stairs and breaks her hip, so now she has to move in with you. Or your brother gets in a car accident and is paralyzed from the neck down and needs constant care. Before you even hang up the phone, this lady would be halfway out the door, and after a few decades of marriage, she'll probably take half your stuff too. That's what this is about. Abandoning your spouse when they are suddenly burdened with a moral responsibility. It would put me off of even being friends with OP. Very selfish. You're not the jerk. Your husband and sister-in-law are the jerks. Repeat after me. If you keep disrespecting my boundaries, I'm better off without you. Honestly, I feel sorry for the kids, but sister-in-law needs to understand that you're not a spare mom because she doesn't want to raise them. You are 100% the jerk and a straight-up terrible person. Please get a divorce so he can find a good human being to spend his life with. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk for divorcing her husband over this or not? Please let us know. Am I the jerk for wanting a divorce after cancer? I, 35 female, and my husband, 36 male, have been married for 8 years and together for 11. We've got 2 kids who are 6 and 8. Last year, I was diagnosed with cancer. Although the treatment was brutal, I pulled through, or so it seems for now. The truth is, things have not been smooth for the past 5 years or so. I've been trying to fit in what my husband sees as ideal life, living in remote locations and adjusting my life to make it work for us as a family. His dream is to live by the ocean, far away from people. I'm a city girl. For the sake of making it work for both of us, I've taken jobs that are well below my abilities. For him, though, it does look like it's what I wanted. It was, because at that point it was the only available thing given the compromise. My husband was living his dream life, not even realizing that my resentment was building up. I did bring this up many times, but he was dismissive. Things blew up 2 times. He saw me flirting with other guys. I never even kissed anyone, but it was an emotional betrayal probably. I gave up alcohol 3 years ago to make sure I'm always in control and I don't do stupid things that can ruin my relationship. My husband is a great father. I've never had a father like that. He loves our kids and they have a great relationship. So do I with my kids. But he isn't a great partner. He asks me every day about my day, but he never really listens to what I say. He keeps talking about his work, but doesn't notice me. He makes a lot more than I do, 7 to 10 times as much, but insists that we pay everything 50-50 to keep it fair. During the past years, I've been covering more expenses than him, and I was working full-time during my treatment. He never offered to pay for any extras. In his book, they were years, my pregnancies, where I was paying less, so now it's fair that I pay more. I don't feel emotionally connected to him at all, and I don't want to hook up with him. So now I've been still contemplating divorce for over 8 months. I'm out of treatment, and I don't know if I'm going to stay healthy for a long time, but I'm tired of compromises. He's a nice guy, and we're planning to start therapy, but I just want to live a new life. Therapy seems like a burden to me. Am I the jerk for wanting a divorce? Divorced cancer alumni here. I could have written this post myself. My ex was wildly unsupportive during my treatment and insisted on me providing more financially than him, despite my years of volunteering at his business, which delayed my career. It took me 18 years to leave him, but I've never been happier. We don't have kids, so I can't speak to that. Allowing yourself to be happy is not a jerk thing to do. I make 4 times what my wife does. We have no separate accounts, completely shared finances. How on earth can people who split finances not take into account income differences? That's not fair at all. No, he is not a nice guy. He is definitely not a nice husband. Just one thing, OP. How would you feel if your daughter's spouse treated her the way your husband is treating you? OP. Oh no, I'd grab her by the hand and take her to either a counselor or a divorce attorney. Then why not do that for yourself? By staying in this toxic relationship, you're only showing your daughter that it's okay to be treated this way. Kids grow up idolizing their parents' relationships, and by staying where you're treated this way, you're showing her that this is what's right and expected of her. Compromise your happiness to make your husband happy. If you love your daughter enough to not want this for her, then why not love yourself enough to leave? You deserve happiness too, OP. He's financially punishing you because you grew 2 humans at great risk to yourself and weren't able to contribute equally? He's the one who didn't contribute equally. Ask for surrogacy payments in the divorce. What a tool. He's not a nice guy or a good father if he's teaching his kids to financially mistreat their partners. Goodness, just leave this man. Life is short and you know that. You're lucky to have it. Don't waste your remaining years being miserable. It will be hard on the kids, but they'll get over it. It's 2023, not 1953. Kids can survive a divorce. It would be better for them to grow up with happy, separated parents than with unhappy parents who are still together. Do this next. Tap here on your screen to come see our new podcast playlist, where you'll find thousands of hours of the best stories you've ever heard. Or tap the one on the right. That episode is specifically just for you, based on other videos you've enjoyed the most.